Veterans Day. I remembered Veterans Day in a devotional I gave at Tau chapter of Delta Kappa Gamma, an organization for women educators. I read 2 World War I inspired poems, In Flanders Fields by John McCrae and America's Answer by R.W. Lillard, and a World War II vintage prose piece by Howard Vincent O'Brien, written immediately after his son had gone out the door going to war. I had read those pieces and cried for 10 minutes out loud before I could read them aloud for the ladies. I had read the writings many times before without breaking down, but the combination of having watched an old Ginger Rogers movie where her husband didn't come back from World War II, the deployment of troops in the Gulf region, and my observation of how war keeps on costing in money and grief in my association with the VA hospital in Lexington put me over the edge. I managed to read the selections with only a slight choke when Howard O'Brien said, "Well, curly head, you're a man now, bearing your bright new shield and spear." The rest of the ladies got misty-eyed, but nobody reacted the way I did the first reading. When I went to college in March of 1945, only about 100 young men were on campus. Most of them were either very young or very old, or 4Fs. A term meaning unfit for military service. Western Kentucky State was almost a girls' school. The next year, at the end of World War II, the campus became instantly more interesting as a flood of veterans came back to college to finish their education on the GI Bill of Rights. The government paid their college tuition, board and room, and a small stipend. Many of the vets were married with small children, and the college accommodated them by building a trailer court for married housing called Vets Village. Some very interesting veterans became some of my best friends, and one became my husband. Harold never talked about his experience in the service except to say that he never saw combat. Another of my veteran friends described to me his job that was similar to Harold's. When you have to clean out some of your friend's brains off the cockpit before you fix the plane, that's hard to forget. And you wake up at night and reach for a bottle to blot out the remembrance. This from a young man who had been my Sunday school teacher before the war. Harold never drank anything stronger than iced tea and soda pop, not even coffee. But he seemed to want to forget any experience he had in the service. He didn't keep up with any Army buddies. Only rarely did he let slip an incident on the Tinian or while he was in service. I did not pry. He once explained not joining the VWF with, "I gave 3.5 years of my life. The government paid for the rest of my education. Because of that, I am able to pay more in taxes than I would have otherwise, and I'm glad. That's all I want from the government, just to be left alone." How wrong he was. He has been an Alzheimer's patient in the Veterans Administration Hospital on Leestown Road in Lexington for over 2 years now. And I know that if he realized what good care the hospital staff there was giving him, he would be grateful. The building he is in, Building 1, was built in 1932, obviously for the World War I veterans. It was renovated in the late 1980s and is a beautiful modern hospital. There are 27 other buildings on the campus. The hospital on Cooper Drive is a massive installation with its own parking structure and rooms for acute illnesses and a huge outpatient load. I've observed the way the veterans are treated in both places. Though sometimes the patient has little dignity left, he is always treated with respect. I hear the doctors calling him Mr. in a deeply respectful tone, when the patient looks like an alcoholic bum to me. The nurses and doctors on 1 through 3, where Harold has been for over 2 years, are unfailingly gentle and loving toward the patients who are as helpless as so many bed babies and ever so much less responsive. One little elderly black gentleman often sits in the corridor strapped in a chair with a tray in front of him and a stocking cap on his head. He is more alert than most of the patients on that floor. He is greeted by each nurse or orderly that passes by. "Good morning, Mr. Baltimore," they say. His eyes twinkle, but I have never heard him say a word. For 2 years, I've observed the quality of care my husband has received at the hands of overworked staff at the Leestown VA hospital. I appreciate the concern and love the nurses and doctors bestow on patients who are unable to voice their thanks. This is a tribute to the people who are continuing to care for the veterans and a reminder that war costs, and it keeps on costing. I appreciate a country that keeps caring for the ones who have fought to keep it free, and I am particularly grateful for the ones who care for my special veteran.